Good afternoon. Today, among other things, we're going to talk about popular music. You know, pop music has always driven parents crazy. As a kid, I'd turn the radio up full bore as Johnny Ray wailed "The Little White Cloud That Sat Right Down and Cried." My dad claimed that listening to this over and over again would scramble my brains and render me tepid for life. Maybe Howie Rosenberg was right in the Los Angeles Times this morning. Soon after came Elvis and Little Richard and Buddy Holly and Jerry Lee Lewis and the Beatles, and with every set, the grown-ups warned of dire consequences to America's young people. It continues right up until today. Today's parents are wary of the so-called heavy metal music, the Motley Crue, Twisted Sister, Black Sabbath. Adults believe that these groups and others are chanting the praises of Satan, sex, death, and rebellion to an audience of confused teenagers. Here on videotape are some examples of what drives moms and dads up the wall.
This is what you wanted, this is what you got. It'll only get worse, believe me.
Well, whether it's what we want or not, it's what we're getting. And to talk about this kind of music, here now is Sis Levin, who is the Executive Director of Parents Music Resource Center. Its stated purpose is to establish ethics in musical production. In November of the last year, the Center, the recording industry, and the PTA caused records that have reference to explicit sex, violence, or drugs to contain a warning label. With Sis today is Donny Osmond, who needs no introduction whatsoever. He is a noted singer, and his albums have never had to have a warning label, to my recollection. And with him is Kim Richards, the president of Allied Artist Records. Now, you've all seen the call-in number on the screen, and because today is a school holiday, I hope that we'll hear from the younger set who listen to the music we're examining today. Sis, I want to begin with you because your organization and the others I mentioned, the PTA and the recording industry, help to get these so-called warning labels on records. There are some people who view this as censorship. Why do you believe it's not?
Well, because it's strictly in the field of consumerism. It was agreed between the Parents Music Resource Center and the recording industry that it would be a good idea to give a consumer tool to consumers. It was a voluntary agreement, and that's not censorship.
You know, there are warning labels on lots of things, and people buy them anyway and use them. A notable example is cigarettes.
Right.
What good are these labels going to do, realistically?
Well, obviously, they do some good. There are some people who like to have that clue, like to have that tool, and you just do what you can. There are no perfect solutions, do you think?
No, I don't think there are any solutions at all. I think there are only attempts at solution. We live in a frail and...
But we need to try, don't we?
Misunderstand. Yes, we do. You want to come over here and...
Well, I'm learning too, and this is an educational process. We all love children and we're all concerned about them, and we're thinking out loud. What's good about it is that we are able to think out loud and reach solutions together. Nobody has every answer.
Donny Osmond, you are probably a person who will have his career not affected at all by this sort of thing because your particular...
That's where you're wrong.
I'm wrong there?
That's where you're wrong.
Because your kind of music is... it needs no warning label. It is what it is.
That's where you're wrong. Sis, I understand what you're trying to do, but I think it's a stupid way to go about it. Because it is, because what you're doing is, if I was forced to put a G rating on my album, that's death to me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do you think a teenager is going to walk into a record store and buy a G-rated Donny Osmond album? I would be
I don't know the answer to that
I would
question.
be embarrassed to walk into a record store and buy a G-rated album.
By yourself?
Yes. Next thing you know, it's going to go off to its own place in the record store next to Jungle Book sound theme, you know. and then you're going to find the G-rated albums in the toy stores.
I have to tell you this. I don't know what a G rating is, and maybe you didn't understand what did happen in this agreement. There are not ratings, and they didn't push for ratings.
Okay.
What there is simply a consumer to warning, like on cigarettes. This may be harmful.
Okay, let me give you a scenario.
So tell me about ratings, because we didn't ask for that.
I'll give you a scenario, okay? If I recorded a Madonna song, okay, No, let me change it. If I recorded a song that talked about a person who was downtrodden in life, just nobody would give him a chance, and he was suicidal. If Ozzy Osbourne records it, that's offensive. But if Donny Osmond records it, it's a fact of life. It's a sad story.
Yeah,
a realistic
except Donny Osmond would not record a song like the Ozzy Osbourne song, which we're going to address here a little bit later on. That would not be your kind of material, Don. I mean,
really?
I don't think so.
It's hard to imagine.
I can't imagine you encouraging anybody.
No, I wouldn't encourage anybody to go commit suicide. But then again, I am going to record material that a 28-year-old guy is going to record. For instance, I don't think there's anything wrong with having sexual connotations in a record, because sexual connotations, and I'm really getting myself in a deep situation here, is...
I'll help you in.
Thank you.
And I'll listen.
Okay. Is an expression of love, okay? It depends on how far you take it. Obviously, a lot of people take it too far. But what is the difference of me recording a song that has sexual connotations, an expression of love that might be beautiful, and somebody else doing that? Yeah?
Do you think that this little warning thing, as you say, you don't want to make a record now that doesn't have a warning on because you think it may go to the toy store, how will it change the kind of material that you record? I noticed that your new album is going to have songs, Boy George songs and other rock star songs, which is a long way from Go Hawaiian, I have to tell you. No offense to Go Hawaiian, but you're going to change, aren't you?
Absolutely. I have to. People have to change. But it just gets back to the fact, Tom, that I don't think I really want an independent group of people deciding what is right and what is wrong.
Well, the independent group of people who will be deciding are the recording industry, just as lawyers have their own boards of ethics, you know, to try their own offenses so that they can give their very best, and doctors have boards of inquiry so that they can give their very best. My impression of the recording industry is that they really want to give their very best because they realize what an influence for good that they are.
But I think...
So it's decided among themselves, you know, what tools need maybe to be out there, not by anyone else.
Well, I think what the artist might be saying is they want to determine what the audience wants. They don't want to have an outside board deciding this record gets a stamp and this record doesn't get a stamp.
That's exactly what happened.
All right.
That's what the agreement is.
Let me go to
Thank
the people of Los Angeles for a couple of seconds. Good afternoon. Won't you go ahead, please? I think we have a very, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I had the volume up.
Oh, okay.
Tom, I have a short statement and then a question. My statement is, don't you think if we have censorship, the people who aren't writing sexual connotations are going to write these because they know that they're going to sell more? And that way we're not going to have any albums for kids. And now my question is, what was my question again?
What was your question?
Don't you think that ethics should start at the house, just like with movies? Don't you remember your mom and dad asking you what movies you're going to go see and what the ratings are on them? Don't you think they should take their kids with them to buy the album instead of having this dumb censorship thing?
Let me have Kim speak to that since he has a record company.
Parents don't go to record stores to buy albums with their kids. It would be nice if they did, but they don't. And let me give you an example. This particular album, which is Wasp's album, has a warning sticker on there, which is voluntarily placed on there by the record label and the act.
May I see the thing? I've never seen this album, and I'm just curious about it, and I'll hold it up. But go ahead.
I think it says some of the lyrics may be considered offensive.
Yeah. Right here. Come on, fellas, give me one camera to point. Well, this is helpful because you can't see this either, so it doesn't make any difference. What it says is lyrics may be considered offensive by some audience.
That's right. And what they've done by placing that sticker on there is they haven't warned parents. They have put a sales tool on the album to increase their sales, and the kids are going out and they're using it as a rating of records to take a look at the record and say, oh, this is exactly what I want.
That's right.
So
they're bringing attention to it.
So what you're saying is something we do need to talk about too, which is that if the thing is really dangerous, it's going to be more successful, and perhaps that's good for us to know about, because if we are in this state of mind that something is going to be a great success because it's dangerous, we need to talk about that. And that's all to the good, because I know you love kids.
I love kids.
And they are prone to buy the most dangerous stuff, and that makes it a success. Doesn't that worry you?
It does worry me to a degree, except that there's one, for instance, this particular sticker, this is the only album that I was able to find that was out there that had a sticker that was even affixed to the actual cover. The others are on the shrink wrap plastic. It's on the outside of it.
The cellophane.
Consequently, by the time that album gets home, that sticker is gone. This sticker can be removed very easily.
That, of course, is your responsibility, and we're certainly operating in a position of trust, having made this decision together that that's what you wanted, and that would satisfy us. So how it works is really up to you, and we do think you're going to do right about it.
We're trying to do our best to be responsible, but on our own.
All right.
Good. Well, that's where it should be.
Next caller on the line, won't you go ahead, please?
Good afternoon, Tom.
Good afternoon, sir.
I'd like to make a comment on the album covers, period. That is, last night I noticed a record cover that almost made me sick, which was made by Ozzy Osbourne. And it's just dementing to have, you know, a little kid walk into a record store and pick that up and want to listen to it.
Excuse me, but are you near your television set right now?
No, I'm not.
Oh. Is the name of the album called The Ultimate Sin?
I don't remember the name of it, but it just...
Well, here is an Ozzy Osbourne...
Is it the current album?
That's it right there.
Okay.
Now, if you look at that picture, would you want your son or daughter of a young age to pick that up and want to listen to something that looks like that?
I wouldn't want my best friend to do it.
I don't really appreciate those kind of albums.
Did you buy it, sir?
No, I didn't.
Well, then you exercised your rights.
That's right, but I have in the past listened to Ozzy Osbourne, and his music just does not enthuse me.
You know, may I make a comment here?
Yes, sir.
Obviously, there is this kind of garbage on the marketplace. And obviously, I don't want my children buying this type of stuff. But it's always going to be there, Tom. You're not going to be able to stop it. So I think a lot more emphasis has to be placed in the home, teaching the children what is right and what is wrong.
And maybe this will be one of the results of this, which has got to be a good thing. Give it to them. These four very courageous women who brought the issue up were really just trying to get people to talk about this.
I understand, and like I said at the very beginning, the intentions are perfect. The way to go about doing it is a little wrong.
Well, maybe we will all learn something by the effort.
Bring up the issue, exactly.
What I don't understand about this album, Sis, the Ozzy Osbourne album, there's no label anywhere on here. Now, it may have been on the cellophane, right?
There was not. There is none.
There was no warning label at all.
Then obviously they did not think it should have a label, and we should probably discuss that.
No,
this is not one of our products. This is a CBS associated label product.
I'm pretty sure that was before the agreement was reached.
I don't think so. That's
are they retroactive? Do you know that?
Very recent album.
This is very recent.
Okay.
Sis, when your child goes into a store, if you went with your child to pick out albums, you would not be able to tell that that album is not an album that you want your child to listen to?
I don't think that's the point. Again, as I'm saying, the need, which was expressed by thousands and thousands of parents for a little consumer help as things were bought, was very effectively met by the recording industry, and we're very pleased with this. I think it's sort of strange that we get stuck on this gear when there's so much more to talk about.
Well, let's get to that after this commercial.
We are so pleased that we've reached this pleasant agreement, and yet it's as though we're trying to re-argue that thing that was settled.
We're not going to beat that horse to death anymore. You see, when this man here holds up a thing that says go to commercial, I have to do. It's my own little warning label of life, you know what I mean?
I follow that.
Otherwise, I say the magic words and we all disappear. We'll be right back after these announcements. Welcome back. The phone numbers here in Los Angeles, 213-818 or 520-KABC. Next caller is on the line. Good afternoon. Won't you go ahead, please? Hello.
Hi. I have a comment and a question.
Okay.
I grew up on Osmonds from the time I was 7 years old. My brother grew up on Led Zeppelin and The Who and those kind of people. He's now a police officer. And I can remember when an Osmond song was banned in Europe. It was called Crazy Horses. And they all thought it was about drugs. And it was about air pollution. I really think that this kind of thing is something that parents need to take an active interest in, and I think that we are taking that away from the parents and making them be lazy parents if they don't do that kind of thing. Don't you think that parents should be taking an active interest in this, and that this should be something that's dealt with in the home?
Well,
yes.
That's where the emphasis, like I mentioned earlier, should be placed. Isn't that a very interesting scenario that our record, Crazy Horses, was banned in a country because it meant it had something to do with drugs?
As I said at the top, you know, I've never heard of one of yours being banned or requiring a warning label. Now I have. I learn something every day of my life.
Every day you learn something.
All right. Next caller on the line. Good afternoon, and won't you go ahead, please? Hello.
Yeah, hello. I want to ask a two-part question. One, to Miss Limbs in the blue dress, is when you were a little girl and you were growing up with Elvis, didn't your mom say anything to you like, I don't want that record? And then you say, oh, Mom, you know, please, it's Elvis and stuff like that?
Let's get the answer to that first. That's interesting.
Okay.
To tell you the truth, that was really not the music that was presented to me. My family was very interested in very serious music. Mm-hmm. And I honestly think, and this is going to upset everyone in the room, that if really serious music is presented to children, they prefer it. But nevertheless, music is a very important part of a child's growing up.
I don't think that's a true statement. I think that I know many people who are into the classics and into jazz and different forms of music, and it doesn't mean that they don't like other forms of music. There are many kids out there that enjoy all forms of music, from heavy metal to Bach and Beethoven.
Great. Well, I'm glad to hear it, because I think that music is a tool of survival and a tool of growth. A true musician
can appreciate all forms of music.
That's a very interesting debate, too. Roger Wagner, for instance, said, you know, give me children to raise up in music, and I have my future audiences guaranteed.
Well, you know, when the Beatles came out, everybody knocked them and said that these were the harbingers of the devil, and as time went by, people began to measure what great music the Beatles produced. Even Bob Crosby at one time, the band leader, said, you know, the Beatles have horns up front, or violins up front. I forget his exact comment. But the Beatles produced some fantastic music as we look back on it. But in 1964, when they got off the boat, these were a bunch of ruffians come to destroy American youth. But when you were a little girl, you didn't listen to any rock and roll music at all?
Not terribly much, and you've got my ages off by about 15 years, which I appreciate. But anyway, my youngest child is 21.
We do anything to please her.
My oldest child is in her 30s, so you can place me. But nevertheless, the subject itself is extremely valid, and I'm very excited that we're talking out loud about it. I thought what we were going to talk about was lyrics. And I think if we could concentrate just a minute on lyrics and on violence in lyrics, we might see what the concerned parents were
But you see, I have to be polite to all concerned, and I know that the young person waiting on the phone had a second part of the question that he or she wanted to ask. So if you're still there, now the second part of the question.
Okay, I'm 14, and I listen to a lot of music. Now, what do you have against Madonna, Apollonia, Sheila E., and everything? They're just singing what they feel. I mean, I'm not going to go walk into a record store with my mom and say, oh, I want to get Madonna. She said, no, she's too sexy on the cover. So what?
There's another very valid point.
I think it's good that you and your mom are talking about this. That's what we want.
There's a valid point. If Donny were to record Dress You Up, it would have an entirely different impact on the listening public than if Madonna records it.
Well, you know, I can get away with murder.
Would you want
yes, you can. Yeah.
But would you want to?
Because the parents like me, and if the music's there, which hopefully it is going to be this year, the kids are going to like it. And the kids say, I want to buy Donny Osmond. Sure, go ahead. So
I think you said a very important thing. You said, I can get away with murder. And the fact is that you are a hero, and so are these other people, great heroes to kids. Now, what the PMRC is concerned about is the very, very young child who's made a hero out of one of you, and then that rock artist is suggesting very violent lyrics, very violent behavior, and that very young child who cannot take it with a grain of salt, who cannot sift through it and throw the bad out, takes it very seriously, and we've seen some scary stuff happen.
Absolutely, and I appreciate the fact that a lot of people have made me their hero. But
That's
Puppy Love, it is a big responsibility. But Puppy Love, which was my biggest record, can be a filthy song.
Well, it all depends on, I guess, how you play it and
how you listen to it, how you perceive it, and how you translate the lyrics, which is the very issue. Because if somebody translates the lyrics and they try to rate those lyrics, they can interpret them incorrectly.
All right, I want to present a very specific lyric here after the commercial, and this gets to a song about suicide, which was sung by Ozzy Osbourne. That may have had a result, a tragic result in the case of a 19-year-old boy from India. We'll have that part of the story right after these announcements from our sponsors, and I hope you'll stay tuned.